G'day world, my name is Tara Tylicki and we're going all around the world right here from the backyard. So last time we were in Asia and I was talking about my surprise that I revealed and also about self-love. Today we're heading to Australia and we're going to talk about intuition. Though right before I do that, I wanted to make mention at the end of the last video I talked about how I got to put a sacred cloth behind where the Dalai Lama comes out to sit, and it was like behind and to the side. When I was back there though, what was placed on it was something called an earth treasure vase. Now, when I was getting ready for this video, I ended up looking up again about the earth treasure vase in our trip, and I found that they had a whole detailed description of our journey. So I'm going to put a link to that so you can take a look at that if that interests you. And it was wonderful to see everybody in the group, and I was next to Barbara, who I'll mention in a bit, and Uncle Bob, who's the Aboriginal elder. Barbara was his wife, and it was such a wonderful trip to be able to experience. And I had like a special request to mention this one part of the story that I'm going to tell about them in a little bit. So when I was getting ready to head on this trip, I also had an amazing synchronicity that occurred, and I believe that synchronicities and intuition, the more that you listen to your intuition, more synchronicities kind of come forward. And the funny thing is the more that I know someone like in the world around me, a lot of times I get feedback that they notice more synchronicities in life too, which is kind of a fun thing, don't you think? So as I was getting ready to make my flights, the day I was going to make my flights to head on this trip, I was heading to Australia, which I had wanted to see since I was little. I was in a hiking group and I ended up connecting to someone who, you know how you just resonate with somebody? She ended up being a flight attendant that ran the route to New Zealand and Australia. And she said that if you fly one way New Zealand and back Australia, it should be cheaper. Check into it. And you might want to check into that if you ever go too, because it really was. Even the crossover flight included, it was $500 cheaper. And I got to go to New Zealand. It was absolutely phenomenal. I had one of my favorite experiences in my life there. And I know New Zealand might be considered like Oceania. That was such an amazing, profound experience. I ended up being able to go into this cave, Waitomo Cave, and I was floating, like on a boat, floating on the water inside the cave, looking up at glowworms on the ceiling. And soon after that, I went to the Rotorua Spa, one of the top 10 spas in the world at that time. And I hadn't really like self-treated myself that much. I learned to do that more, that self-care. And I had thermal water being poured on me while someone who was very nice gave me this amazing massage. It was absolutely fantastic. And it was such an amazing experience. I even got to meet a Maori healer, and he invited me to come back. But that's a long way to go all the way back because he was interested in getting work done, which I thought was, I was so grateful to even have that opportunity connection with them and the people. People in New Zealand are so warm as well. So after this amazing experience, and I got to see even like the whole like hobbit holes and different places that they have filmed before, I went from there and went to Sydney in Australia and got to sit there in like the second row back, I think it was, learning from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And as I mentioned, the prayers were put in this earth treasure vase. And this earth treasure vase that had been given to Cynthia by like a 106-year-old Tibetan Lama who's living in a Himalayan cave in Nepal, to be placed around the world to activate like a healing grid. It was for the healing of the earth. And prayer, of course, is so powerful. So this was an active prayer. She had gone on all these different journeys, and this was supposed to be the last of the original ones. I have since found out that there's even more, though originally this was supposed to be the final one to like activate that whole grid. And so it was an amazing experience. They went from there to Uluru, and Uncle Bob Randall was the Aboriginal elder that I was told watched over Uluru there. And we got to stay and camp like in the outback there and learn from him around the campfire. One time I was passing by that area of the campfire, and Uncle Bob all of a sudden mentioned my Hawaiian teacher's name. I'm in Australia and I hear my Hawaiian teacher's name, and I was like, "You know Makahala?" And he goes, "You know Makahala?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh." So it was absolutely fantastic connection. It's such a small world, and it's so amazing. It's either a small world or the synchronicities that kind of come together. I love it. So it was such an amazing experience. And the special request of the story was the fact that when we were walking around Uluru, that I got to this one particular spot, and my intuition said that we weren't supposed to be here, like this is really sacred, and that like we weren't supposed to be in here. And I was told that I was right. And that's one thing that is really important, to be willing to just bring up your intuition. And you know, I could be totally wrong. This is just what's coming to me. And that helps that process of understanding your gut more and what your gut is telling you. And so I was told, yes, that's right. And also they were saying, you need to teach intuition back in the United States, back in America. And I said, the funny thing is that I was actually set up with an event to do that soon after I got back. And so I was talking about that event back in America when I'm in Australia, and then when I got back to America, I was talking about being in Australia that particular moment, which was a lot of fun. And so we went from there higher up to Aboriginal land that we were invited to, and went way, way, way out in the middle of nowhere. It was a long, long journey to get there, and at one point the tire blew out underneath me, which was kind of scary, and we also had one of the vehicles stuck like in the water on the journey on this sacred land back there, Aboriginal land. And finally we got to the spot that we were supposed to be at, and we all got ready to do ceremony, and we gathered around on these set of rocks. I ended up bringing out the wolf's hair that I had the intuition before I even came there to end up getting. And when I got that intuition, I didn't even understand it. So the intuition came to me, I think about a week or so before I was going back on the East Coast to work with my clients from California to head back there. And then I went from there to head on this trip. And when I got the intuition, you need to bring wolf's hair, I'm like, don't know a wolf, don't know where I'm really gonna get a wolf. I was like, how am I gonna do this? I don't really know. But I trusted the intuition that came to me. And right before I went on the trip, I was on a date. It didn't unfortunately work out. Though it was a wonderful person that I was on this date with. And we had lunch, and we stepped outside, and all of a sudden, I turned to him and I said, that's not a dog over there, that's a wolf. And we walked over and we asked him, that's what the man said there, that, and I have a photo, I'll put a link to it, to this wolf. And I ended up petting her, and there's a white wolf, and this hair came off on my hand. And I ended up taking that hair and the wolf's hair that my intuition was saying to get, and I brought it with me back to the East Coast, and we put our prayers in it. I had all the people that I connected with there, an amazing practice there. They're so grateful to know everybody. They put all their prayers in there, and then I took it with me, of course, to New Zealand and then Australia. And here I was, finally, on this whole trip. It's coming to an end, and I'm putting the prayers in. I'm putting the prayers in this wolf hairs. And as I do that, someone in the group decides to be playful and decides to howl like a wolf. And like 5 packs of dingoes sound off all around us. We're like, it's dark at night with the moon above, and all these dingoes are sounding off as our group was like howling into the night. So that was a really amazing experience as I put that wolf's hair into the earth treasure vase, and it was passed to the next person, and we all continued to put our prayers in, and then it was placed into the earth. And maybe sometime I'll talk more about the story that happened there after, that you'll see in the link of their description. Though that was a really amazing experience. So I want to thank you so much for being here, and I wonder what's next for you. I look forward to whatever we do next time. I don't know, maybe it'll be from the front yard or the side yard, and when things open up, I hope that I'll get to show you some of my favorite places around the area here, and maybe eventually again around the world. So please like, share, and subscribe. And thank you so much for coming on this journey with me all around the world, right here from the backyard.